Hello and welcome to this edition of Inside the Naval Postgraduate School from Monterey, California on the Quad at NPS. I'm your host, Alan Richmond, here on the Pentagon Channel. Thanks for joining us. Well, on this episode, we'll talk with the newest member of the NPS Hall of Fame. We'll also talk with one of the NPS professors about the Hartnell City College NPS Summer Internship Program that's proved to be quite a success for local youth on the Monterey Peninsula. We'll also visit with the new administrator for the TSA, Mr. John Pistole. But first, let's head south to Big Sur, California, in the field for some testing on NPS communication systems technology. Lots of what happens at the Naval Postgraduate School happens out in the field, and that's where we are today, talking with Brian Steckler from the Naval Postgraduate School. Brian, tell us a little bit about the exercise that we're involved with today. What are we seeing?
Sure. So we're down at Andro Molera State Park in Big Sur, California, and we're doing a exercise and demonstration of rapidly deployed communications, broadband wireless communications, in conjunction with a bunch of the Monterey County early response community. So California Fire is here, Salinas Fire Department, Monterey Police Department, Monterey Fire Department, California Parks, who is our host at this park here, Defense Information Systems Agencies here, along with several vendors, companies that are here with their products to help us integrate their products into the scenario. The scenario involves setting up a satellite connection to the internet here in this park, then beaming the signal up a hill, then beaming that signal from a hill over to the Point Sur Lighthouse 4 miles away, and then down to a Navy facility at Big Sur, all a wireless link from here to there, to demonstrate if we had a real fire down here, like the Basin Complex fire we had 3 years ago, we could bring broadband wireless internet into the area where the early responders are working.
Now, we've come a long way with this kind of technology because you've been involved in the hastily formed network communication for disaster relief really around the world. Talk a little bit about what that involves.
Well, it started back in January 2005 in Thailand after the tsunami that hit Indonesia. The day after Christmas, I was in Thailand setting up these same kinds of networks on the coast of Thailand that had been affected by the tsunami. Then later that year, 2005, Hurricane Katrina happened. I took a team down to Bay St. Louis and Waveland, Mississippi, and set up the exact same kinds of networks later in 2005. Then last year, same thing down in Haiti. Set up wireless communications networks for early responders in Haiti.
And how has the technology improved through the specific episodes that you mentioned? Is it getting better every time?
Sure. Longer range for the point-to-point, wider coverage for the meshed wireless Wi-Fi, we call it. The satellite service is bigger pipe, less expensive equipment, smaller equipment.
And the outcome that you hope by the end of the day today will be what?
Well, we want to, demonstrate the art of the possible to all the early responders and the observers and visitors from around the world. We want to train our firefighters, our police, our NPS faculty and students on using the equipment. We want to break the equipment so they can figure out how to fix it, and we want to run through several scenario injects for deploying out in the field. Say we have a report of a remote hotspot fire. We need to get eyes on there. We're going to send video out there and send it back to the vehicles here.
Well, today we're actually working with the California first responder community. We've been working on a project with a Department of Homeland Security funded project through the California Homeland Security Consortium. We have a component of that called the IPC3 project, which is independently powered command, control, and communications. And behind me here, you can see some of the equipment that makes up that system of systems. We basically have a power system, we have a communication systems, and we have an emergency operations center. So those three systems are being tested out here today. We're trying to integrate our systems with the big red fire truck behind us, which belongs to the Salinas Fire Department, and that is a big communications vehicle. Which is great as a command center, but sometimes you can't get to some of the places with that vehicle. So our system is designed to go into more austere environments where transportation might not allow, the infrastructure might not allow a big vehicle to go in. On the communication side, we have internet access that we need to get to some applications that the first responders need to use for command and control, situational awareness, and that sort of thing. So we set up a power system, we set up a WiMAX system, we set up satellite links, And all of these tie in with the radio systems that the first responders use, and that gives them the ability to communicate locally and back to the internet. Part of what we're doing here today is demonstrating, as Brian Steckler likes to say, the art of the possible. So we have private industry doing things, we have research institutions doing things, we have the first responding community doing things. What we're trying to do is bring all of these pieces together so that everybody can see what is out there in the industry. We have 2 vendors here today that are demonstrating their capabilities for us. We've got the systems that we've developed that we're demonstrating, and then the folks from CAL FIRE and Cal EMA and the fire department in Salinas are demonstrating their capabilities. We're trying to find a blending of that technology that works for everybody and remove some of the interoperability issues that have occurred in the past. Take it to the point of failure and back it off. That's what we do. And we expect failures. Failures happen in the field. We need to work through those. We need to be able to recover from those failures, and we want to do it here rather than in a real event.
Well, as a county emergency manager, my job is to make sure that all planning is occurring in terms of catastrophic plans for both first responders, public safety, government executive leadership, and our community at large. So we do a lot of planning. I also ensure that all of the public safety agencies have the training, experience, and equipment that they need. I work to make sure that all those public safety entities, both fire, law enforcement, EMS, public health, public works, as I say, can all play well together in the sandbox and are trained and have experience in doing that, so that in the heat of the battle, when the emergency is occurring with a disaster, we already know each other. We've already interacted together. We know how to communicate. We have that interoperability, both functional interoperability as well as communication interoperability. So it's my job to make sure that all of that happens throughout all of Monterey County.
Well, special thanks to all the participants, especially the NPS personnel that were involved in this exercise with the Monterey County Office of Emergency Services down in Big Sur. Well, stay with us. Coming up after the break, we'll introduce you to the new administrator for the TSA, John Pistole. Stay with us here on the Pentagon Channel. Here's the administrator for the TSA, John Pistole. John Pistole was confirmed as the Transportation Security Administration's 5th administrator in July 2010. As TSA administrator, he oversees management of a 60,000-strong workforce, the security operations of more than 450 federalized airports throughout the U.S., the Federal Air Marshal Service, and the security for highways, railroads, ports, mass transit systems, and pipelines. Under his leadership, TSA will continue to grow as a risk-based, intelligence-driven counterterrorism agency dedicated to protecting our transportation systems. Recently, he visited the Naval Postgraduate School. Well, thanks very much for taking time to appear with us here on the Pentagon Channel. Now, your background has been in law enforcement with the FBI. How did you transition to become the director of TSA?
Yeah, so I was with the FBI for almost 27 years, and really since 9/11, working in the national security, particularly counterterrorism arena. So I see my role as administrator of TSA, when I've been here for 18 months now, as really a continuation of that in a different agency. So TSA was created obviously 2 months after 9/11 with a counterterrorism focus to make sure that the events of 9/11 didn't happen again, as part of the overall U.S. government's strategy to prevent bad things happening, particularly in aviation, although TSA has other responsibilities. So I bring a counterterrorism background and experience in national security, and I see TSA as being one end of a continuum for national security for the U.S., with the focus being on what obviously happens at the airport, but a lot of what we do happens before anybody ever gets to the airport. And so it's that engagement with the rest of the U.S. intelligence and law enforcement community, and then state and local police officers around the country, that allows us to do the job as we do.
Well, your responsibilities are huge, taking in rail systems, subways, all the airlines, and you must have a tremendous amount of people that work for you. How does that all fit together?
Yeah, it is a large, diverse organization. We have over 60,000 employees, and we include the Federal Air Marshals as part of TSA. And it's something where we have a primary focus on aviation, obviously given congressional and intent back when we were created. But there was seen a need to engage with state and local providers of mass transit, surface transportation, if you will, trains, buses, ships, ferries. So we primarily work with Metro Transit authorities and Amtrak, for example, bus authorities on the surface transportation, while Coast Guard really and others do more on in terms of the ferries and the ports and things. We do have a number of ways we do that. It's primarily through augmenting or enhancing the local agency's efforts, perhaps through transportation security grant funding, money that we can supplement what they're doing, or through direct training or other ways that we can help harden targets, if you will, that terrorists may be looking at.
Well, since taking over at TSA, what are some of your accomplishments and some of the challenges that you faced?
Well, there have been a number of things, good things that have happened over the last 10 years since TSA was created. One of the things that was fully operationalized last year, November of 2010, was what we call Secure Flight, and that is simply a database of all travelers coming into the U.S. or through the U.S., and we have about 1.8 million people just in the U.S. every day that we screen here, and then probably 250,000 coming in from over 270 airports from around the world. Each one of those people has to have their name, date of birth, and gender registered, if you will, with us. And so I start every day off with an intelligence briefing, and I look out several days in advance to see who is traveling that may be concerned. So are they on a terrorist watch list? And if so, do we have federal air marshal coverage on those flights? Or if they're on a no-fly list, then making sure that they are not going to fly. And so what Secure Flight being operational last year is shifted the responsibility away from the airlines to the federal government, so we'd have a central way of focusing on the security threats that may be looking at with aviation.
Well, since you've taken over at TSA, I know there's been a lot of advancement in terms of technology. Can you talk a little bit about some of those changes?
We've done a number of things, particularly here in the last year, where we are trying to get away from the one-size-fits-all construct that we used when TSA was stood up, to make sure that another 9/11 didn't happen or something tragic would happen. And so what we are doing is working on what we call a risk-based security initiative, which has a number of different aspects to it. Some of the aspects include something as simple as dealing with children 12 and under in a different way, recognizing that children are not terrorists, although they can be used by terrorists or drug traffickers or whatever it may be. Our focus is obviously on terrorists. We're also dealing with the pilots who fly the airplanes in a different way. It made little sense to me that we are doing physical screening of them when they're in charge of the aircraft. They don't need anything in their pocket, a gun or knife to cause catastrophic damage. They can put the aircraft down.
Well, from a traveling public perspective, sometimes it seems rather inconvenient, some of these things that people have to do. But the big picture is, don't you think people really get it that you're trying to make travel safe for them?
Yeah, absolutely. On it. So we screen, again, 1.8 million people on average every day, over 17,000 flights every day, 450 airports. And obviously every once in a while there will be a complaint of some traveler, but I don't know of any other agency or even business that deals with that volume of people, over 12.5 million a week, over 50 million a month, over 625 million a year, that has 100% customer satisfaction. Now that's our goal, is to provide, again, the most effective security, the most efficient way, meaning the best professional service. And so there's a lot of things we're doing in terms of training, retraining our highly capable workforce. I don't think most people have an appreciation for how difficult the job is. For example, at a checkpoint, looking at an x-ray machine at carry-on bags and try to discern what may be, for example, a cell phone, which is actually a stun gun. So we had that happen recently. We had a recent incident with an advanced imaging technology, a body scanner, that picked up the fact that an individual had some like ace bandages wrapped around his ankles, which would not be picked up on a walk-through metal detector. And it turned out he had almost 700 grams of cocaine, which is not TSA's responsibility, but if that was explosives, if that was TATP, PETN, whatever it is, then we better make sure that we're detecting that. So those are some of the challenges that we face every day, and the opportunity we have to provide the most effective security in the most efficient way.
Well, we're very pleased to have you here at the Naval Postgraduate School to speak to our students. Tell us a little bit about your perspective of Naval Postgraduate School.
I see NPS as being a key enabler for us in TSA as we we try to evolve into a high-performing organization. Look, we're just 10 years old, so we're a young agency looking to mature in a number of ways. But one of the key ways we can do that, I think, is by training and better equipping our workforce through advanced educational and training opportunities. And NPS provides an excellent opportunity for us to do just that. So today, I spoke to a class of 29, 7 of whom are TSA employees, mid-level people that we are trying to groom for future leadership positions. And I've had the opportunity to review the thesis of at least one of the TSA employees, and was really impressed with the level of sophistication and work that was put into this master's thesis. So we see NPS as one of those enablers for us to move to the next level.
Well, we certainly appreciate your taking time to appear with us here on Inside NPS on the Pentagon Channel, and we wish you safe travels.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, coming up after the break, we'll introduce you to the newest member in the Naval Postgraduate School Hall of Fame. Stay with us here on the Pentagon Channel. Here's the newest member into the NPS Hall of Fame, Admiral Stanley Arthur. Admiral Stanley Arthur was born in San Diego, California. He entered the United States Navy via the Naval Reserve Officer Training Corps program at Miami University, Florida, and was commissioned in 1957. He attended the U.S. Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, where he earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Aeronautical Engineering. In 1971, he reported to VA 164 as executive officer and assumed command a year later while again deployed in the USS Hancock. During this tour, he completed over 500 combat missions in the A-4 Skyhawk. He then attended the Industrial College of the Armed Forces and also acquired a Master of Science degree in Administration from the George Washington University. Following assignments to the Bureau of Naval Personnel, he assumed command of the USS San Jose in 1976 and assumed command of the USS Coral Sea in 1978. Other significant assignments included the staff of the Commander-in-Chief of U.S. Pacific Fleet as Assistant Chief of Staff for Plans and Policy, with additional duty as Commander Rapid Deployment. He later served as Commander Carrier Group 7, a warfighting force of 7 surface ships, 2 submarines, and 8 squadrons equipped and trained to work toward a deployed force, providing a deterrent against aggression and protection of vital U.S. interests anywhere in the world. He was selected to the rank of Vice Admiral in February 1988, and he assumed the duties as Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Logistics. Upon retirement, he entered the private sector. In 1999, he assumed duties as President, Lockheed Martin Missiles and Fire Control in Orlando, Florida. This operation designs, produces, and supports some of the most advanced combat systems in use by our armed forces. In June 2005, he retired from Lockheed Martin. Well, congratulations on being the newest member to be inducted into the NPS Hall of Fame. Can you share your feelings with us?
Well, first of all, I'm amazed. I'm sure my professors from many years ago would also be amazed, but I'm very honored to be added to that illustrious group up there.
Well, you had a distinguished career as a naval aviator. Tell us a little bit about your life after you left Naval Postgraduate School.
Well, fortunately, when I left NPS, I was able to go to an immediate payback tour, which meant I went to a developmental squadron, VX-1, down in Key West, Florida, and got right into the business of doing test plans and doing test work on operational suitability of weapon systems to go into our fleet of airplanes. So I took a direct excursion from the school to putting it into practice, so I was very fortunate.
So as you look back on your time spent here at NPS, can you share some of your memories with us?
Well, it's sort of a love-hate relationship. My family loved it here. I thought I was working too hard and not having as much fun as I should have. But in retrospect, it was probably one of the best times career-wise that I've ever spent. It really set the stage for many things that followed.
What were some of the takeaways from NPS as you left and pursued your career that helped you both in your life and your career path?
The critical thinking was of course a part of the process, and the ability to recognize that you really could devote a lot of brain power that you didn't think you had to a problem. and that if you just sat down and took a little bit of time to sort of sort it out and channel your focus, you could really accomplish a lot. So I thought it was, like I say, some of the best time that I ever spent that paid big dividends later on.
Well, throughout the years, NPS seems to stay so relevant to today's military. Why do you think that is?
Well, I have been able to watch the NPS change over a long period of time. And what I've been most pleased with is to see that NPS has really stayed up with the times and has understood that they need to have this close association with the warfighter.
Well, once again, sir, congratulations and welcome to the NPS Hall of Fame. It's a great honor to have you with us.
It's an honor for me to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, again, our congratulations to the newest member of the NPS Hall of Fame, Admiral Stanley Arthur. Well, coming up next, we're going to talk to Jim Newman, one of the professors here at NPS and one of the students who came from Hartnell College as part of the NPS Hartnell Summer Internship Program.
We've been fortunate in our group to be able to work with 4 of the Hartnell undergraduates, and we've had a lot of fun and a lot of success, I think, with our program. We've been fortunate to have kids who, and I guess actually they're representative of a lot of the Hartnell students, and that is that they're very interested in education, they're very interested in getting their degree and in applying what they know. So we started off with Justin Jordan, for example, and then Chris Halkin, Ernesto Yzquierdo, and most recently Philip Yee. And we've been able to actually work with them as Hartnell interns and then to hire them into our laboratory in order to give them a sense of the hands-on value, hands-on opportunities in the technology areas. They've all brought different skills to the lab, and what we try to do is to find out what they're already good at and give an opportunity to work there, as well as to find new areas where they can then grow. One of the things is that they'll come in with a certain level of experience, and our goal is always to give them an opportunity to do a project that, again, we are interested in hands-on project-based learning. And so we try to find interesting projects related to our goal here, which is the education of military officers and civilians in order to interest them in government service. That's part of the outreach program and the main core of what we do. And so these projects are related to the overall objectives of the laboratory, and they involve satellites and high-altitude balloons, and we're moving into rockets next year as well.
Well, I want to have an experience in the field. I mean, it wasn't like I was an electrical engineer and anywhere else. I was, was doing, some electrical, nothing that would be considered electrical engineer, I would say, just kind of technical work. So I applied, and I was able to get the opportunity here in this lab, and where I started working here was on the high-altitude balloon, which project was already started, so I was able to kind of see some of the built parts of the project and able to add onto it, and that was one of the starts as far as the first project I worked on when I started this internship. I think he's a great person. I mean, he's been understanding the situation that I'm not able to be here most of the time because I have school. Not only that, but he seems to find the best in every person as far as being able to, I guess, unveil their talents. When I was here, I was just doing a few hours, high altitude balloon project and any other little things I could help out. And he was able to have me do other things that I knew how to do, but I didn't really present it as, as a skill. Being able to maybe set up some of the computers, re-image them, just do even some technical work, a bit of electrical work, fixing some of the equipment here.
At first, they're not sure what they're getting into, if it's their first year, for example, their first time at NPS, but we bring them into the laboratory, they work with our traditional students, and they work with our they work with our military students, they work with our civilian students. And after a while, they just start fitting in. They find a niche for themselves. For example, Ernesto. Ernesto, it turns out, can do just about anything. And we'd like to give them an opportunity when we can to work here and develop skills that are going to definitely help them in their studies and in their career later. My goal is to help now with education and to help train the next generation of young men and young women as well to follow and build on what we've already done in this country.
I wouldn't even have thought that I would be at such a level with actual other people that they're already in the profession. Like a lot of the students here that come to the Naval Postgraduate School already have a profession in engineering, physics, and other, science. To be able to work with these students that are getting their masters now, it's a great experience. I would say I guess I'm a lucky person, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to work here with Dr. Newman and everybody else.
Well, special thanks to Ernesto and Professor Jim Newman. Well, that's it for this edition of Inside NPS from Monterey, California. I'm Alan Richmond here on the Pentagon Channel. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.